Yo, 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 what's up? We're back again with another Titanforge podcast, episode 170. And this weekend, we are joined by Moadmoad. What's up, buddy?
Hello. I'm just chilling. My first podcast, so it's pretty interesting. And yeah, let's see what it's all about.
Yeah, been a long time coming. You've been around the M plus scene. I remember you back in BFA. There's the pushing on Disc Priest in season 3, season 4, when not a lot of other people were interested in that. That was and you the squirrel tech in
Oh my gosh,
workshop.
Yeah.
Oh wow, yeah.
That actually got used quite a bit in the Great Push and all that. I don't think people would have found it if it wasn't for that, but yeah, maybe they would. It's pretty cool how years later that turned into something that was actually usable.
That strategy was insanely good. Did you ever figure out any other big MC tech things?
In Temple of Cethralis, some of the mobs have an ability. It's around the second boss area.
The poison guys?
Yes.
Okay.
And those mobs have an ability which I think has been removed, but you can still cast it in MC. Which, when you apply it,
What?
it reduces damage taken by 90% on a friendly target. And basically, if you rotate your MC, you can have 100% uptime on it, so you can basically make your tank immune, which is pretty interesting. But I mean, Temple of Cethralis hasn't been recycled yet, so people don't really care. But,
Yet.
That's actually
Yeah.
crazy. That's really good.
Dude, you
Yeah.
remember that they just couldn't use it for all because of that orb bug where it would you wouldn't be able to complete the dungeon. So even if they brought back that dungeon, it wouldn't be in
Dude.
MDI or stuff unless they could fix that.
They took it out, and then they were then next season they brought it back, and then in the first run it got bugged, and then it was just gone again.
I mean, I actually noticed the pattern because it used to be that you pretty much had access to every spell, but Blizzard's actually removed the ability to be able to cast certain stuff in MC. They're trying to prevent us from doing the cool tech, unfortunately. At the start of Dragonflight, you used to be able to cast the shields from Ruby Lifepool on your tank and practically make him immune.
Oh my
But-
gosh.
They removed that as well now, so you can't really cast it anymore.
They just hate priests.
Yes, they do.
All right. Well, we have you here with us, not just talk about disc free stuff, although I think that would be a cool thing to do, especially looks like they're going to be pretty good next season. Pretty good set bonus just got announced for them, but also because MDI is just concluded, and you guys and you're on Team Mandatory that ended up getting second place overall. So first of all, congratulations. That's very impressive.
Thank you.
Of course, Mandatory, for those of you watching or listening, may not, if you weren't following too close, this is a team called Monka before, but you guys got picked up by Mandatory. How did that process go? Getting an org, it's a French org, right? What was the story behind all
Yes.
that?
So Mason is French, and I'm not sure if they reached out to him or he reached out to them, but basically, Mandatory, they have some really big streamers, for example, Zerator,
Mm-hmm.
which is 1.5 million views, French guy. And yeah, this guy's pretty massive, and the top esports roots, they've been playing WoW as well, but no longer professionally, or so basically they wanted to invest in a WoW esports org and have at least one French player, which is our team, and yeah, they believed in us, so they they were up to sponsor us, our sponsor, I don't know, support us, and yeah, that's how we got lucky.
Dude, we saw Zerator was co-streaming the MDI finals and stuff like that, and he had an insane amount of viewership, and they were
Yeah.
co-commentating your guys' runs and stuff. It was so cool.
Yeah, it was crazy. At some point, I think he actually had more viewers than the Warcraft broadcast.
Yeah.
Which is crazy
Really?
because
Holy crap.
yeah, it's only French. So how? That's very interesting.
They were spamming those hammers.
Yes. Raise your hammers.
So obviously, you guys ended up getting second, which is almost as good as you can do in there. Were you guys hoping to be able to beat Echo, or I mean, how close was that? Did that end up feeling for you guys? And how much is that the plan next time? You guys,
I
I
mean,
mean,
we
keep
know
going for
that
it?
we can definitely beat them, but it's very tough, obviously. So the Shadow Moon, for example, we got a little bit unlucky on Boma.
Oh,
Our guy went down 3 times. Theirs went
yeah.
down once.
Dude, I was gonna
And
ask
then-
about that.
Then after that, as a consequence, on the blueberries, right after the blueberries, we jumped down to the last boss, and that split second, we were supposed to get Thundering, but it never applied to us because it's like one of those semi-roleplay things.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if you get Quaking when you jump down, it skips. That's how they made it, but Thundering is also affected. So not only were we
Oh.
slow on Boma, we also lost the
Oh.
Thundering at the start of
Yeah,
the
that's
boss.
huge.
Yeah, and then like we were like seconds off of beating them. So
7
if all of that
seconds.
hadn't had happened, who knows? We might have won that game. And they admitted to us that they never did a sub 9 Ruby, and we had, even in tournament. So we could have won the Ruby as well, you know? So it's like you think of what could have been, but yeah, there's not much use to it because what's done is done. And I
Mhm.
mean, second place is fantastic, and yeah.
So let's,
Were there any other instances of RNG that kind of felt really good or really bad besides that bone mod thing?
So one of the choices that pretty much every team was forced to make is to snap in Algathar Academy,
Oh yeah.
which had a lot of RNG tied
that's
to
right.
it. Like no matter what you did, you couldn't reproduce the snap 100% of the time. And our route involved 2 snaps, like snapping mobs up to the Cyclone Boy, and then snapping the plants to the bird platform.
Yeah.
And like the first snap was really reliable, but like in one of our games, two of the worms didn't snap to the Cyclone Boy, and then the same game, also the plants, they all snapped, and then they fully reset for whatever reason. And when stuff like that happens, it leaves a very sour taste in your mouth because you're kind of forced to do these things,
Right.
especially the plant snap, because it's not only the pull that you skip, you also skip roleplay from the boss starting. Right?
Yeah.
And that is a tremendous time save. So every team kind of has to do this, but at the same time, sometimes for whatever reason, things just don't work. And for the other team, if it does, then you're just behind by RNG. And yeah, I don't know. I really disliked the plant snapping because you had to do it, and if you didn't, you just felt like your strategy was
Okay.
losing strategy.
So I've actually had a question about the plant snap. How did the mobs snap back to Overgrown Ancient that one time whenever you guys were in AA? Because like we saw you guys do the snap successfully, and then they just left and decided to go back to the boss.
Yeah,
like what even happened?
I mean, we don't know. Like sometimes the mobs just decide, okay, well, I want to go back home or something. I don't know. They just don't want to be there sometimes.
I did I did this podcast thing with Echo yesterday, and they had very similar feelings about the snap situation in Algathar. It's like, you got to do it right, but then if you try it, you're just opening yourself up to it going wrong. But if you don't try it, you're just going to lose to another team that does it and doesn't have it go wrong. And it's like 80% to mostly work. Pretty much always something like not everything is going to snap, right? But sometimes everything does snap, and then you're so far ahead. It's just it's brutal.
I kind of wish, in hindsight, that strategy would be banned. But how do you, as a company like Blizzard, how do you decide what is and what isn't allowed? Because snapping in general does enhance MDI, I think.
Yeah.
Because you're allowed to add your own creativity and think, outside of the box a little bit. If you weren't allowed to snap anything, then it would be a lot more bland, I think. So I don't know how you would determine what is banned or what isn't, but this particular snap, it was, I'm pretty sure every team felt like this, that Academy was just shaky because it was a really high key, 23 Tyra, which, you know, first boss, for example, if you add any trash to it, it's spicy as hell. And
Yeah.
you have to do explosives and all that. So yeah, I don't know.
So-
This key was very difficult.
I mean, so just like taking a step back and looking at the format for the whole season, obviously we had higher than normal key levels. Like, how did you guys feel like that played out just as a whole? As somebody who played, like, obviously the keys range from 20 to 23, and those are very different textures whenever you have a 20 versus a 23.
Yeah, I mean, if you go 20 Azure Vault, for example, you can pull whatever and you're fine. Things can go through and, you know, you can out heal everything. But if you play 23 whatever and things go through, you're at a risk of dying very quickly. And it just means you can't pull that big. You have to stop everything. And yeah, I kind of preferred the little bit lower, like 21, 20 would be really fun.
Okay.
I agree.
22 was fine, I think, but it was kind of tough. Like, for example, 22 Fort, the mobs were already quite beefy and they hit for quite a bit. But 23, I think, was actually too high. It made the routes a little bit more, made them less intense than you would want them to be in MDI, I think.
Like a live key route almost.
Yeah, you can't really do crazy shit. You would
Yeah.
just have to play live key, but a little bit more spicy, and that really fast. That's kind of what it evolved into.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about comps, right? Because you
Ooh.
guys, I think, did some cool stuff with your comps throughout the cups as well. That the like priest mage combo was
Yeah.
something you guys were kind of on early. How did you guys like? Was that, you know, you as a priest knower, something that you guys figured out first? And was there any other cool stuff you guys tried but we never saw on broadcast?
We found that priest actually did fairly similar single target to other killers. To, for example, evoker, especially if you could free cast and you could like get your full window off, then you do very good damage. And in a lot of dungeons, the only real damage that mattered as a healer was pure single target. Like the rest would just die from ignite or whatever. In the cups, we actually, I mean, we would play Shaman in Temple, as every
Mhm.
other team did, and we played Evoker in Knockhood. And for all the other games, we actually intended on playing Priest Mage. So that was something that a lot of teams didn't do back then, but we actually didn't show most of our like we showed some maps, but we didn't lose any games, so we didn't have to play, like, for example, Azure Vault that was never seen in the cups. I think there's one other map. So, but yeah, we intended to play Mage Priest there. And basically, if you pull on top of a high HP target and you can combust a high HP target, you know, the rest will just die from ignite as well. So that was kind of the logic, right? If you look at how we pull in halls, we try to find high HP targets everywhere and
Yeah.
combust them, and I would just
Yeah.
deal with the explosives. And yeah, that's pretty much how it was.
Changing
And,
explosives just for him.
I mean, you're kind of forced to pull bigger with a comp like that because you want to get the value from that. And I was just dealing with explosives in very big pulls.
This
And, yeah.
This might be a weird question. Were you running all of your talents in Temple of the Jade Serpent, by the way?
Yes.
Okay.
I ran Acid Rain. I I understand some people thought I wasn't, but I mean, I've never swapped out of Acid Rain, and after I heard complaints, I went back, checked, and it was definitely on detail. So
Yeah.
and it was locked in my talents.
For
That's
those
not
listening,
something you can ever swap out of.
for those listening, what he's talking about is there's like a MDI companion app or something that shows the player's talents during the match, and it was just bugged. And so people thought he just wasn't playing with talents or something.
Yeah.
Okay, so you guys actually ran a fairly standard composition over the course of like the whole entire I would actually say over the course of like most of the weekends, you guys felt like it felt to me at least as a viewer that you guys were running the most normal comps in between your runs, whereas other teams were playing a lot of diverse things, such as things like there wasn't a clear cut decision on whether or not prot paladin versus prot warrior was the best in every single situation. Obviously, you talked about the healers a bit earlier, and then like the damage compositions. How did you feel about just like comp diversity this patch?
So, for example, in Temple, we opted to play with Warrior as opposed to Paladin.
Uh-huh.
And we actually tried both, and we got very similar results. But Paladin would do slightly more single. And you'd notice that on, for example, third boss of Temple. And like between finals day and the second day, we changed some of our cooldown timers. Basically, we would use them again on the first boss, like after we practiced that, and then they would come up right when you have thundering on the second boss. And that was actually the major difference, what made us slower before, and it gained us like 15-20 seconds at least on our second boss split. And I mean, we found that Paladin or Warrior, it would just came down to execution pretty much. Like Warrior also buffed the Feral and the DK, so it's not like Paladin is the only one that contributes in terms of buffs.
Mm-hmm.
And Warrior made things very consistent in terms of stops, right? You have the AoE
Yeah.
silence and a shockwave, and Sky is very good at stopping things. So when we took that away, Divine told us target capped, and we relied a bit more on doing things differently. And yeah, we were like, the results are so similar that we're going with the comfort of Warrior over repracticing with Paladin. And yeah, that dungeon is like, if you miss stops or whatever, you just get feared and you die or something. So it's extremely important that we get everything. And like with those changes that we made with the cooldowns, I think we could have gotten really close to 12 minutes exactly, or maybe even slightly under if we played perfect. And
Yeah, that's nuts.
I think that's what Paladin teams did as well. Like I asked Echo today, what do they think they would get, and they said like high 11s, slightly sub 12. So I think it's very similar. And like Paladin would have small things like you can bop as soon as the ads on the first boss spawn, and there's shades running everywhere. So like one player can just chill. It's like small things like that. Paladin definitely helps, but it's not mandatory to play.
One thing I thought was really interesting that you mentioned was the thundering timing on second boss that you guys discovered. I
Yeah.
feel like that probably happened quite a bit with how much you practiced, right? Because that only happened to my team like once, but we also just did like 9 days of practice, and that was the discovering if you one phase the first boss of Shadow Moon, that thundering
Yeah.
lined up like perfectly for the second boss burn.
Yeah, and we also started using everyone started using pot embellishment, and then we used pot on first pull, pre-pot, and then we potted on the first boss. And if we were really fast, we would skip the second thundering on the boss, first boss in temple, and we would get it as we entered the next pull. So that would also speed us up a bit. And I don't think if we actually tried to make that timer, we actually tried to min-max thundering on the first boss, and that's kind of spicy, with quaking and like the beams. So yeah, we actually had to try to push ourselves there, and then we got a little reward for it, which was kind of cool. And yeah, thundering was definitely more interesting in MDI than it is on live keys, because you could kind of know when you got it, and it would always be the same if you played the same, right? And
Yeah.
you could
I can see that.
kind of adjust strats to it a little bit, but sometimes it was just like, okay, well, we can't do anything different, and this thundering is useless. So unlucky, I guess. That's kind of also what happens with thundering.
Yeah, when you're running away from Fenrir and thundering happens, that's always a fun one.
Oh no.
Yeah. It is what it is.
We have a question. We have a question from Arya in Discord that asks. Basically, the question is: did the fact that there were a lot of specs, did that make practicing harder? Like, what did you have to practice more comps and try a bunch of different things in different dungeons, or?
I mean, we were like, okay, you can play everything this MDI. It's just kind of crazy. So it makes you second guess yourself a lot. Like, okay, we're playing this, and this team is playing this. Do we really have the right choice? And then you try their comp and you see those strengths, but all of your players kind of have to learn whatever is good, So it definitely makes practice harder for sure, I think. Like if there's only one comp, you don't have to think about it. You just try to optimize, like back when Holy Priest DK was the meta, you just played one comp and you didn't have to think about it. But now, Shaman, Evoker, Priest, we play with Mage, Shadow Priest, DK, Feral, Destro. You have so many choices, so it wasn't always clear what was the best.
Did the Amulet ever change anything? Or did you guys ever like try like no healer comps and stuff like that? Was that ever on the table? Or is it something that's just like never gonna happen?
We saw in the first cup, okay, we can ban Kos because it was never first game.
Yeah.
And we were pretty quick to make the decision, and then we just, skip on practice on one map. And in the finals we could do the same. So we tried a little bit of 4 DPS before the maps were released. But we could just perma-ban Kos the entire tournament. So
Yeah.
we kind of took that opportunity and forgot about Kos. It was a little bit annoying with Enforcer RNG as well.
Yeah.
I'm kind of surprised not more teams perma-banned it, but I guess if another team is really strong in another dungeon, you'd want to have the option to ban that one. But yeah, the 4 DPS thing, I don't think it was really viable in other keys because they were just too spicy. And Kos is
Even
chill.
even with like the Amulet ring, there was no way to get like get enough off healing from that thing.
I mean, when it was released, the rings, on TR we didn't have them for 2 more days.
Oh no.
And
Okay.
I don't think people really tested the defensive properties extensively because like DPS players, they didn't get secondaries first of all, and then they'd have to play this shit. I don't think they would be very happy.
Sure.
You can't really waste too much time practicing some niche strat like that. So yeah, 4 DPS, it would have to be obvious where you would play it, and otherwise just don't waste time, I think.
I think last question I had is what happened with this double onk clip? Is there just no cooldown on onk on the TR? What is the deal with this?
So when you onk, you can't onk again right away, but if you get rest in between, you can. This is a thing on TR that's, I think, been there since BFA at least, where for practice purposes, I think they make it so that you can onk every time you start a key.
And
I think that is the reasoning. But yeah, basically, in this clip, Zilia onks because he dies, then he gets rest after that, and that makes his onk reset again. So yeah, he's like a cat with 9 lives here. So it's a TR thing, and yeah, it's kind of stupid how it works, but
yeah,
it is what it is. That's TR reality. Every team would have the same advantage if this happens. So
I mean, some people did say that Echo had an advantage because of this. How I look at it is like you have to have somebody die to be able to take advantage of it too, and it's like I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it helped them, right? But like,
yeah,
it's never something that you would plan to use intentionally, nor is it something you should get mad at a team for pressing onk when it lights up, right? Like that's in the rules that's allowed, right?
I mean, some people will spam like cheater or whatever, but it's a TR thing. I can't fault them for doing it, but I wish it didn't work that way because it doesn't work on live that way, and it's kind of silly. But I mean,
honestly, I kind of just wish it worked that way on live.
Like, honestly, I could be down.
Just reset onk on on boss, at least in raids, man. It's so annoying that that's
Imagine
not
the
always
tech.
available.
You'd play Ankh Totem, and then you just die perma and give Grief Torch.
Okay.
Just constant Grief Torch.
All right, yeah, maybe it doesn't reset like it does on TR, but Ankh should reset on
I mean,
boss dying like every other
Even-
cooldown does.
even with
Yeah,
Grief
no,
Torch,
I do agree with that.
Yeah.
even with Grief Torch, you're not gaining enough DPS to be able to overtake the 5 seconds of death penalty alone.
Well,
I
if
mean,
you got 5
in
Grief
Raid you don't have
Torches.
Death Timer.
Yeah.
That's true.
If you do this in the last 10 seconds of the dungeon as well, there's no death timer. So,
True.
yeah, write that down.
You could grieve 3 times.
Yeah, really big. Okay, let's see. Is there anything we want to talk about from the other series as well?
Okay, there was actually some cool stuff from the other series. How did you? I don't know. So there was actually so many 2-1s this weekend. I think that was something that we were talking about just as the casters. Pretty much every single series was 2-1 except for one series of you guys versus Legendary, one series versus Cheese versus Legendary. How did that feel day one, knowing that you guys were like one of the very few teams to actually 2-0 a team? Was that like a big confidence for you guys?
I mean, we played pretty clean the first day, and Legendary actually surprised us with their strength. Like, they were close to us, but apparently they had their Giga God run in halls,
Mm-hmm.
and we also had a pretty good run. And yeah, we were kind of impressed, and we were like, wow, these guys are good. So, I mean, we knew they had good players, but you have to see them perform together to kind of get a good feeling for what they're capable of. And yeah, I mean, it left us with confidence that we won, but at the same time, I was personally really impressed with every team. So, you can never let your guard down, because the second you start thinking that you're just better than others, then you lose your focus. So you always have to play really good.
I mean, dude, this global finals was just so stacked. I feel like just so many teams were. The caliber of play was ridiculous.
Yeah, it was insane, and honestly.
Right.
Do we want to talk about this now drama with the Court of Stars, Wikora?
Dude, the takes I've seen on this Court of Stars thing.
They're cheaters. Nah, like, okay. You want to hear my take?
Oh, please.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, first of all, we banned Koth, so it didn't really affect me, but I do think that even though they found it, it's kind of stupid, that one team would be able to skip the roleplay, but I don't think it's cheating.
Okay.
If it's possible in the game, then you can't really fault them for doing it, I guess. But it kind of sucks that it is possible to make a weaker like that.
Yeah, like definitely that weak R shouldn't exist or be possible.
If I was the team facing them, I'd be pretty annoyed if they won because of this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
by like
kind of
5
annoyed.
seconds or something. I would be pretty annoyed.
Well, it's kind of crazy that they cheated in Court of Stars and still lost.
Yes. Imagine that.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that it's like, okay, obviously, like, this sort of weak R shouldn't be possible to make, but given that it is, like, I don't know, it's very hard to come up with a rule against this that's not going to require like
I don't know
going through people's WTF folders or something. So
I don't know if they ask permission though. I wonder actually, because in a lot of strats you'd have to ask, can we do this?
Yeah.
But since it's not a snap or a gameplay related thing,
yeah,
I don't know
just
if
a weak
they
R.
actually bothered asking. Maybe they didn't. Maybe they did. I don't know.
How did that go this season? Because this is one of the first. I mean, it's not the first season, but this is one of like the seasons that most has employed the rule of like you need to make sure to get strats confirmed beforehand. Did Blizzard allow most stuff that you guys were asking for?
Yeah. We asked approval for 2 things. The Azure Vault, like, I would die on the 3rd boss, then I would trigger whelps, and they would get global combat.
That
and
was
they
so
would snap
cool.
down to the last boss.
And then
Yeah.
you fade, right?
Yeah.
I didn't even have to fade, but yeah, I faded.
Oh,
Like,
really?
yeah, they just, Sky does healing aggro on the last boss, and he'll just rip aggro. And there's some mobs in M Plus which are quite specific. They're like, they're spawned. They're not active from the start of the dungeon. These mobs generally snap really quickly. The same happened in Streets of Tazavesh
Mm-hmm.
with the cats and the Direhorn. Those mobs, at least the Direhorn would like Giga Snap Insta, If the tank stood on like some snap spot, it would just port on you immediately. And the same happened here. So, we noticed somewhere in practice, we were like around the second boss, and somebody just pulled the whelp for I don't know what reason, and we'd have them port to us anywhere in the dungeon. So, like, okay, well, you can use this. This sounds pretty interesting. And then,
Was that one consistent? That snap?
yeah, it would always snap.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, and like one of the mobs also had a damage amp, right? The Furies, and Crims could actually spell steal that, 35% extra dam. So that was an additional potentially advantageous thing. And yeah, our Ruby in the cups was really fast. Like, it was faster than anything we had seen quite a bit in the cups. But we were also playing Mage back then, and Mage actually smurfed on a dungeon because your Ignite would, like, if you set up a proper Ignite on the second boss, it would kill the ads. If you set up Ignite and moved around on the last boss a bit as a tank, it would kill the ads. Like, it basically did what SP did without casting, So Mage was extremely good in that key, I think.
Oh, you're talking about in Azure Vault, right?
Yes.
Okay, you said Ruby, but yeah, the second
Azure
boss,
Vault.
Intermission, it was killing those ads if you can bust it right
Yes.
before.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
That's crazy. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. And we also had to ask approval for halls. We were doing the same thing that Echo did, but we just didn't do it in the we didn't execute it because our setup was different. So it was a bit harder for us because we found it back in the cups. We asked approval, and they said we could do it. And basically back then it was Sanguine, and we were like, okay, we hadn't really practiced with the strat enough, so we kept it for globals. And then in globals, it was explosives. And basically what happens is, if you are close within 40 yards of explosives, and you had a beer on you, and the explosives would target you,
Yeah.
it would make the
yeah.
beer disappear, right? And we used a different strat for snapping them up. We used mass poly, and they used roots. And in hindsight, the way they did it was better because they would snap on the bridge. And by the time now got fully up, they could like root, and the way we did it, we were in the boss room itself, in the corner somewhere, and then the mobs would have to like stop evading and doing weird stuff, and then we would have to CC them. So we had to wait, like, when they snapped on Sky, he would bop, and then we placed a ring of frost around him, then at some point blinding light and mass poly, just to set it up, and that would take such a long time, and we couldn't really activate the kings at the same time, and it was just not very smooth. And we were like, do we want to do this, or do we just want to do what we did in the cup? The first cup was like, we do a big pull, we lost it, and we're still really fast, right? So we didn't know if we needed to do that strat, but then Echo busted it out, and yeah, they won because they did it clean and they did it better, and it was really good the way they did it.
Yeah, they had like this couple people that would get in combat, and then the rest of the group would get far enough ahead that they wouldn't like get in combat or chain combat or whatever. Yeah.
But Mass Root made it snap on the bridge already, and then they would stop unevading, right? And that I feel like that is really the key what made theirs clean, because for us it would actually, we'd have to literally just wait upstairs for things to be done.
It's polymorph is too long or whatever, right?
Yes.
Yeah, what was
Poly was a
polymorph?
minute.
minute. Okay, and
Yeah.
Root's 30 seconds still, right?
Yeah, Root's 30.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I wish we had explored that option, but it is
It's
what
cool
it
though that you
is.
guys had like thought of it and tried it as well. Was there any other
Yeah.
tech? I mean, obviously, like these dungeons are all going away now, so maybe you could share if there's anything similar that like almost worked in any of the other dungeons.
No, I don't think we had anything like that. But
Okay.
we were very hyped to pull this out as well. So I was pretty pissed when Echo did it, and
Versus
Oh,
you.
man.
it's like, oh my god, they're so smart. Like, yeah, I guess they are. I was pretty salty that we didn't do it, but yeah, it is what it is.
Do you know if any
mean-
other teams figured out something like that?
Don't think so. I haven't really spoken to many people about that.
Gotcha. What about
Stuff like
if you had to play Court of Stars, I guess before you knew the maps, did you guys figure out the kiting mini bosses strategy?
No, we didn't. We didn't play it that much either.
Gotcha.
We didn't like court. We didn't like to play it either. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like if we didn't do that, we might have just lost, which would suck. But
Yeah.
I guess
Yeah.
with enough practice, we would figure stuff out. I'm confident that we would. I mean, we always try a bunch of things like, oh well, let's try this, and then, I feel like a lot of MDI is this off hours experimentation that you do, and then just checking exactly how mobs work, how mechanics work, and see what you can do with it.
If you told me that the finals were like mandatory versus Echo at the beginning of the weekend, I would have believed you. I would not have believed that you guys barely beat Legendary by 2 seconds in Halls of Valor in like the lower finals, and then like Echo almost got knocked to the lower finals in this matchup versus Cheese. If Cheese didn't wipe to the Echo Adorogosa, there was just like so much shit that went on this most recent weekend. I swear.
Yeah, this is some spicy stuff for sure.
Every team, man, just like was really putting other teams to the
A
test.
lot of teams, yeah, like I think that if we played everything clean and we played all our routes, we would like beat every team except for Echo in some matchups, like their Azure Vault. We on the last night, before the finals, we improved our Azure Vault a lot, and I think it was competitive with them, but we had slightly different routing. But I think other maps we were really strong on. And if we play them clean, I think we beat everyone except for Echo.
Yeah.
But yeah, the dungeons were so hard that you made a tiny mistake somewhere, and if the other team didn't, then that would be the deciding factor, So there's a lot of pressure on everyone.
Does anybody know how they missed count in Azure Vault?
Something just didn't snap down.
That's what I was saying. Yeah, I swear it had to be a snap.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't go to the global finals and not have a route that hits 100%.
Well, yeah, I mean, clearly it was something that was like a snapper. I thought that they didn't get a tag on a whelp or something like that, but even the looter that they pulled late looked like it was unintentional. It was
No,
like, where did they
there was
miscount?
something else that, like a construct, like one of these golems with frontals, I think.
Ah,
that didn't snap
yeah,
down.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think that's what Robin said. I was watching his stream. But yeah, when something like that happens, it always feels terrible. You hate it.
Oh, you lose so much time too if you miscount. It's like
Yeah,
watching the
it's
team frantically panic to try to find a mob. It's like, oh no.
We actually also messed up that round. I don't know if people saw that, but around the second boss area, we didn't pull 2 mobs in the corner.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually had to finish them off for like 20 seconds after the boss died. And that was such a massive time loss.
Oh no.
I think that run we would have won if they didn't miscount and we didn't miss those mobs. Then we would have been faster, I think. Because
Yeah.
that was a massive time loss, and we were actually going really fast. But yeah, those things always happen in NBI, like tiny mistake here,
It's
tiny
always
mistake
it.
there,
Yeah.
and then you just lose a win. And whichever team does the least of that, they win, I guess.
And then you're like, yeah, do it on a 23. And then you're just like, what? What do you mean?
Yes.
Okay, so what's next for you guys? Are you guys gonna do Great Push next seasons of a Great Push and MDI and stuff? Is that the plan? Stick.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
you guys
yeah.
just picked up a sponsor, right? So
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna play TGP, of course. I mean, last time we did it, we got second, and it was really fun. But one of the major challenges that we have is that Sky doesn't play in EU, so we can only play on tournament round. And for TGP in
Ooh.
particular, that's quite a hindrance. So we're contemplating having him play in EU, but I don't know if he's intending on finding a guild or anything like that. But you know, to have efficient practice for TGP, it really helps if you have the best gear and you can gear up whatever spec is really good, you know.
Hmm.
And if you don't have a guild and yeah, your main is not on the region, then it's quite an effort to gear it, you know.
That would certainly be a hindrance a little bit.
And it's also that it isn't obvious which of the tanks is going to be the meta, you know. So what should he
Yeah.
level? Should he level Brewmaster, Poly, Warrior? Like what
Yeah,
do
you
you
have to
level?
level all of them on EU. That's true.
Yeah, and that sucks.
That'd be a lot of work.
Yeah.
all right.
So that's
Okay.
that sucks. That's all.
Yeah, that's really unlucky. Yeah, they need to make it so we can play with EU, NA, OCE.
That'd be
all
cool.
the same.
Yeah.
Because
That'd be so
Juicy.
good.
I mean, dude, he's for those who don't know the lore about Skylark, he's from Australia and he moved to the US like pretty recently.
Yes, yes. He moved like a year ago, I think.
Yeah.
He's living with his girlfriend now, I think.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I've been following Sky a little bit. He's a gamer, man. He's a really good tank player.
Mr. Worldwide. I mean, a lot of people don't really know him, but you know, he doesn't stream, and you know, how would people get to know him? They kind of only know him from MDI. He's been doing this forever. Like he's been doing it since the start.
Dude, people don't know that he got 4th with Gulch Trotters back in Legion. That guy has been doing the MDI for literally forever.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, his experience really helps with you know, he got a feeling about like, okay, this is good, this is not good, and that intuition is very strong in him.
Yeah, I bet. Does he make a lot of the calls too for stops?
Actually, Maysteen calls AoE stops and stuff like that.
Ah, that's the EU buff where the DPS players call stops.
Yes.
Oh, is that why
That's
our
very
region went
good.
out in 8th this time?
It is, yeah.
Tragedy.
If you don't have somebody that's capable of doing that, it's very hard, I think. But yeah, that
Oh,
helps a
yeah.
lot. That helps a lot.
That's pretty cool.
Usually, routing wise, it's mostly Sky with an initial concept, then me and Maysteen heavily iterating on it and
Mhm.
like trying to, you know, add tech and smart things. Crims also contributes. RX is mainly DPS player who plays a million specs. He plays almost everything. It's kind of crazy. I don't know how people do that. They pick up a DPS and then the next day they can play it. That's crazy to me.
Dude, I didn't know that guy
So-
played Hunter. Like, wait, he just logs on and plays Hunter. I was like, what? What is going on?
Yeah, I mean, he played it at some point. He played Survival last expansion. I don't think he really played BM.
Yeah.
I think he played it in BFA last season, maybe.
Mm.
And then it takes him a few hours to pick it up, and it's done, you know. And like Hunter has some cringe pet stuff as well. Like at some point, one of his auto cast like smack wasn't enabled, and we're like, okay, your damage is looking pretty low. And yeah,
funny.
that was
Yeah.
it's just pet stuff, you know, when you log into some weird class.
That is actually the biggest challenge of BM Hunter. Like the rotation, very simple. The pet stuff and MDI situations, really complicated.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think he plays Rogue. He is actually the one who taught Crims how to play Mage. And
What?
Then, yes, he's Crim's teacher.
Is that
And,
true lore? Wow.
What the hell?
Yeah,
This is great.
real
I'm so
lore.
glad we're learning all this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is a long time ago, but yeah.
Yeah.
So he played Hunter, Enhancement Shaman, DK, Shadow Priest, rogue. He plays everything, kind of, I think.
Yeah.
All right. So we have some 10.1 stuff we can talk about in a bit, but first we get to go to our tip of the week segment. This one, Mode, if you have a tip or anything, you could come up with one while we do ours. Not mandatory for you guys, mandatory for us though to do one. Oh, mandatory.
Mandatory.
Not intentional,
Mm-hmm.
but
Okay.
yeah.
Thinking.
Mine. This is just for anybody that wants to follow in Mode's footsteps. Go on Tournament Realm, play anything there. I've used this one before, but it's been like a year. The add-on My Slot is really good. MYSLOT, My Slot. That is really good for bringing over your binds and stuff. You can do it some other ways now. It's a little bit less painful than it used to be, but it's still a really good add-on for making that happen.
He's writing that down, actually.
No, I was gonna come up with my own add-on tip.
That's good. Troll, how about you? What's your tip of the week?
Since Paladin's pretty good now, like I guess Red just got nerfed a little bit, but Prop Pally and Red Pally got reworked, right? They have talents, not Holy Paladin for some reason, but Red and Prot have a talent that has double freedom that you can use like on another player, and it also gives freedom to yourself at the same time. And this is really useful every season going forward, I'm guessing. But like this season, some of the freedomable spells are like the bats and Shadow Moon. You can just freedom their target to target, and you'll be immune to the bat, and your target will be immune to the bat's spit. Anything with like a slow, also damage component is like pre-freedomable, quote unquote. So like also the big shard guys in Azure Vault is another good one.
Really? Those are freedomable?
Mhm. Yeah, the AoE, you can just chill in it.
Doesn't make any sense.
That's
But
kinda
I think the biggest thing about this is like the entangling affix is a new one, and having a red or prop paladin just solves the entire affix every single time for you and another player.
Yeah.
Is really good.
Okay. Mode, do you have a tip of the week?
There's this add-on I use, which shows how much you overshield for. So like in the base UI, which I don't use LUI or anything like that.
Okay.
Like if you shield someone, it caps off if people are already at 100%. But this add-on displays very properly. I'll share it in Discord.
Yeah.
You'll see what I mean, I think.
What is the name of the add-on? I'll
And
pull it up.
this is one of the
overshields. Okay.
It's not on Curse or anything like that. I think you have to get it from here. This has never had any errors, no Lua errors ever for me. And if you use base UI and you don't have this, you're just missing out, in my opinion. I've been preaching this add-on forever, and I think it should be baseline in Blizzard UI, but you can see how
That is awesome.
Just download it from a random GitHub? Like,
And does this
Yeah.
work if you use non-default raid frames as well? Like, is this gonna work,
I
or
think
is this
so.
only if you're using defaults? Okay.
I think so.
As well as
but
any custom frames that use their health prediction functions. Wow, that's so cool.
cool.
I'm gonna test this.
Yeah, I'm
immediately
copying
after
this
the show.
thing. Let's go.
This should be baseline. Everyone should have this. That's all, in my
Yeah.
opinion. Like I used this. I used a different version of this, which had errors, but this one is like never messed anything up for me. And the reason I had it was because as a disc, you want to see if you can crit shield. You know, your shields can crit, and you don't know how big the shield is without looking at a tooltip or whatever. So this like helped tremendously in that regard. Also, if people use like barrier or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
it always shows. It's so good.
Oh, that's actually
Yeah, I've actually looked for a weak aura that does this exact thing so many
Yes.
times, and I've never found one. And this is so lit. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I love that it's just on some random GitHub, not on Curse4.
I
That's
know.
my favorite.
Yeah,
Yeah, so you gotta like just download this and plop it into the folder.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's it. It's really easy.
Okay.
Cool.
For
Tell
my
us what is the clip here, yeah.
Yeah, for the clip of the week. So a couple weeks back, we talked about rescuing and getting on top of the pole. Apparently, it's also possible with Warlock Gate, if you see on the right side of your screen there. Now, I heard that it's a bit tricky to be able to get it in a correct spot, but it does, if you are playing with a Warlock, you can go and test and try to get a player that is up here. Again, what this kind of does is it makes the mobs that put the bleed on players have no path available if the person that's on top of the pole is the furthest target out. And so that actually saves you a lot of damage from those War Spears.
Yeah,
Some
Dratno
good
Summon
tech.
has been putting those warlocks up in weekly not good keys. So
Okay.
everybody invite Dratno Summon. Character badly needs some invites to keys. So cool tip. All right, let's go to talking about 10.1 stuff, which is there's been some news here. The blue posts have been changed quite a bit. The affixes have changed quite a bit from what they initially were, right? So they nerfed explosive health by something like 70% from the post 30% nerf value already.
Yeah.
And they've also are nerfing the like frequency of the spawns of it as well, giving it like an ICD on spawning, which is pretty nice. How do you guys feel about these affixes now? Have any? I mean, they only just went up for testing on PTR right now. Have any of you played with them yet, or plan to do it this weekend? Maybe.
I'm planning to game this weekend. I'm not necessarily planning to game today. I will say though that the response on this blue post, I still feel like, and we talked about this a little bit last weekend. I feel like the state of these affixes isn't perfect, but they're continuing to move them into a more correct state. Now we do have an official date for 10.1, which is like May 2nd, right? I think that's the date. Now,
Yeah.
with an official date for 10.1 and the state that the affixes are currently in, they are moving the correct direction. I don't know if they're going to be ready for launch, but I think it's possible. We're not like that far off anymore.
So the explosive thing where it's like got an ICD on how much it can spawn. So in big pulls, you're not getting 30 zillion of them anymore.
Yeah.
Seemed like a really big dub.
I mean, we can see it right
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. I wish they would do that for Afflicted and Incorporeal as well. That seems like huge. This should be any affix that spawns should not be able to like overwhelm you like those ones do.
My
Yeah.
issue with explosive is it's just back to square one, where it's like only some classes can kill them. They're gonna end up having a lot of health and high keys. You know, you have to have like one specific really good class that hits the pack while killing orbs and doesn't lose a lot of damage, like
Mhm.
old outlaw rogue was. I don't know.
If it's tuned down enough to where they don't continuously keep spawning, right? Like if I remember correctly, back in BFA, they just keep spawning in packs. But if it's like significantly reduced, then it would still be a good affix, even if you lose damage to it, because
Yeah.
they don't spawn at such a ridiculous rate. Maybe it's fine. I don't know.
I mean, so basically, I mean, you can read this Wowhead article if you want, like the full notes. But the summary is like they changed the spawn rates for these new affixes, and it seems like they're a cap of explosive 2 at a time with an
Yeah.
ICD on resummon. Like that's possible. Incorporeal, only 2 can spawn at a time, but they can spawn in 2 sets of 2 with 1 second in between them. And then Afflicted, you can get 5+ depending on pack size.
Yeah, how nice.
Yeah, it's very cool. So, I mean, we didn't actually have a healer on last weekend to kind of get the healer POV. How have you actually felt about Incorporeal, Afflicted, and Entangling from like a healer perspective?
Oh, I really haven't had the chance to practice because I was doing MDI stuff.
Seems reasonable.
I think you said you're gonna do something this weekend, though, right? People can go watch you do.
I want to play this weekend. Yeah, definitely. Also,
Yeah,
test
that's
the new
good.
preset because the preset is potentially really good. It depends on how often it procs and all that, but basically you get instant radiances. That's the 4 set.
Mm-hmm.
And the 2 set increases your radiance healing by 15%. So historically, Priest has always really struggled with Herja type fights where you just have to pump healing more and more and more, and you're just capped on what you can do. And Herja, I think, is literally the worst boss for Disc. And if it's in short bursts, like maybe Tantrum of Anurot is
Yeah.
gonna be a boss that we see next season. Maybe it's fine for that because you can pre-shield and then like you have a radiance, maybe instant. Maybe you can power through it somehow.
Yeah, Skylark's gonna have to bop you for that set.
Oh yes, that's gonna be juicy. Priests, they actually take quite a bit more extra damage than other classes there because they are cloth.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that is one of the things that is never really addressed. At least it used to be like that with physical damage. You just take way more damage. Even AoE mechanics would do that to you. Like Thrash in Halls. If you play cloth, you will notice that you play cloth. And I think that's really silly, honestly.
I think it is nice that they do this thing on some physical AoE abilities, like Horn of Valor and the Melandris AoE, where
Yeah,
that's not like armor mitigated, meaning that Clothies aren't getting absolutely just rolled by those bosses. But yeah, I mean, in general, there is certainly a large discrepancy between classes.
I think it's very outdated to this armor type stuff. Like, what does priests really have to defend themselves? Not much, like honestly.
Fade.
If you ever, yeah, if you played Theater of Pain in last expansion, and you
Oh,
got
yeah.
hit by the Arbalest, you just flop. Like it's so bad. But if you played Paladin, you could like comfortably tank them, and you press wall, and you even had Shield of Righteous, which also reduces the damage because it increases your armor. Stuff like that is so imbalanced, in my opinion. Like they really have to address this. I think.
Mhm.
Give us Inner Fire or something.
That was where you like got attacked and took less. Or wait, no, that's already there. What was Inner Fire?
It's some vanilla stuff where it had 20 charges, and basically every melee would take off a charge, and you'd get armor. And then at some point, I think they gave us 2 options, like Inner Fire and something else, which either increased movement speed or mana somehow.
Yeah.
And you could like choose which one you wanted active at the time, or spell power. I'm not sure. And now we have nothing of that sort. We have Fade, which is quite nice. And yeah, Desperate Prayer. But I don't know. These aren't really the greatest defensives I've seen. Like Paladin has Bubble, Literal Immune, Plate Armor, really short wall. Like Paladin is being chilling in comparison. It was so
True.
when I swapped from Priest to Paladin, this difference was really
Yeah.
insane. Also, you don't die to like cat bites in a Mist of Turnus Scythe as a Paladin,
Oh
but
my gosh.
you would always die as a priest. Stuff like that. It's like so unfair.
Yeah, makes sense.
All right, do we want to pull up this Nagura tweet and
Yeah, we can look at
do
it.
takes on this one, which is I think an interesting one, which says, I think a lot of issues with affixes for high keys is the fact that some affixes scale with key level, which makes high keys exponentially more difficult with those scaling affixes. Can we cap the scaling around 20? Sanguine, Bolstering, Explosive, Afflicted. Cap the amount of a single
Ooh.
Sanguine tick can heal. Cap the amount of health a bolstered mob can gain per stack. Explosive health, Afflicted health. What do you guys think about this idea?
I love that.
Yeah, that's a good take. It seems logical.
Yeah, I remember having this take for Prideful as well, thinking
Yeah,
like,
mhm.
If Prideful stopped scaling or scaled less with key level past a certain point, it would be a lot less bad, because it like these affixes work well at low keys, and then you just get to the high keys and it's so brutal because it's just so like it so overtakes what you can do in the dungeon, and the a single tick of Sanguine healing for 2 mil or
Yeah,
whatever
yeah.
is
Yeah.
impressive.
I mean, the fact that like Blizzard had to go back and nerf explosive orbs by 71.5% to get them to 137k HP, and even still, at like a 25, this is going to completely scale out of control again to where you're not really
Yeah.
able to kill them. I think that there has to be a more permanent solution, because it's not even an issue of like target swapping, it's an issue of gear and just like kill power on the affix, and that just feels wrong.
Hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that Sanguine is actually kind of weird to list here. So like if you think about it, it does make sense though, because the mob's HP is scaling with the dungeon, so obviously Sanguine healing is also scaling. I'm not really sure. Maybe they have to put a cap on like how much healing Sanguine can do. Like, what would even be the resolution there?
I think the puddle should just get smaller as it heals and then disappear
Oh,
when it's been soaked up.
Ooh.
I heard a take the other day about Sanguine where it was like there should be a flag where if the target is casting something, it heals them for either 0 or like half the amount during that cast, and then it like goes back to the normal healing whenever the cast is done, right? So then it's just like purely on the tank, and you don't get punished as hard for something that's out of your control sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
That was like the most reasonable one that I've heard, but I don't know
I
what they
think
could do.
the shrinking puddle sounds really good to me as well. Like, yeah, you shouldn't get punished insanely hard for making a mistake. Like it should always be somewhat reasonable,
Yeah,
If you
like
mess up,
bolstering,
you
the change they made to that is kind of the similar idea, right? Where it's like you don't
Yeah.
just get owned by 30 permanent stacks on a thing anymore,
Dude,
right?
that was so stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you killed a lot of smallies? Have fun with this big guy. you
Yeah.
know?
I mean, I think that Incorporeal, I still have this issue with Incorporeal right now on the PTR. Now, it's not something that is unfixable, but okay, so the change that they made to Incorporeal is they made them immune to damage, which means things like banish, or not banish, but like cage or, like hibernate, para, blind, that kind of thing can't be broken by just accidentally hitting the Incorporeal mob, which is good. But at the same point, the fact that I walk into a pack and then I'm thinking about, oh my god, 4 incorporeal mobs just summoned, my whole entire plan for this dungeon has gone out the window because of this. I feel like that's just wrong. Like there's something that's completely a mistake on that front with this affix. I don't know. It's weird.
I think for like this is the most controversial affix in my opinion, because I don't know if there's a way they could really make it fair. The closest I can come up with in my head is to like cap it at 2, maybe 3 maximum at a time, and then put it on like no less than a 30-second timer to account for all the classes that have like 20-second, 30-second cooldowns on their single target CC, like Paralyze. But otherwise, like if 4 spawn and everybody uses all their 30-second, 1-minute CCs, and then 4 more spawn like 10 seconds later, what do you even do about that?
Okay.
Like that is just, there's no way.
Also, hear me out. What if you could mind control the incorporeal mob and make it cast its abilities so then all of the
Holy.
enemy mobs dealt 50% reduced damage as opposed to your group?
Hang
That's
on.
quite some techie.
Let him cook.
Hold up.
Logging tournament realm?
Doing the math, I think
Does
that
sound good.
it breaks even, and actually you spend longer killing stuff because 1, you don't have your priest, and 2, they're also probably going to get cast off at the same time on you. So you and the pack are also doing 50% less damage.
Oh, word. I don't know. I think that's something that Mode said about explosive earlier, where it's still just like a time loss. That's so weird to me sometimes, where it's just like all of these affixes are time losses, even if played perfectly.
Yeah, like
they cost like time. That's reasonable though. Like a little bit, right?
in my opinion, like there's like, imagine you have Sanguine or Bolstering, there is a guaranteed certain time loss that you're gonna get associated with the affix.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that sum of time loss should roughly add up to the same. If you play all affixes across all weeks, that would be ideal. And then some dungeons are particularly bad with certain affixes. For example, I played Azure Vault this week, and you have Bolstering, and then you have these breakers, which get really nice and juiced
That
up
mob.
from mob
Oh,
style.
yeah.
And there's stuff like that, which, you have to play around and lose extra time, which is fine, I guess. But yeah, in general, my thoughts about affixes, I think that Blizzard should work on making the affix work in specific dungeons correctly. If you have Bone Maw, for example, and you get Thundering and you get Quaking at a weird time, like right now, if the Inhale happens, Quaking gets cancelled, but there is like a point where you get like 0.1 before you have to move in, and then
Yes.
it's so scuffed. Okay, so
It is
my
doomed.
thing about this is that these events are completely predictable. If you have to stack somewhere, Blizzard should look, okay, well, in this moment, we have to make it so that you don't get screwed over by this affix, and they should
Entangling.
look at how,
Right.
they should look at how affixes affect certain parts of the dungeons and preemptively make it so that it's actually like playable and it's not insanely toxic to play. Like one of the most annoying things from Thundering, I thought, was the random swirlies that spawn. Like if you have to stack on a pixel and a random swirly spawns, or a swirly spawns in your swirly that is covered by another swirly, like stuff like that is like
Yeah.
so bad. If you're standing in something like Bone Maw circle, and then there's a Thundering circle that spawns in your circle, like stop it. Just don't make it spawn there. Like why is that necessary? Like nobody wants to play that game, I think.
I actually hard agree with what you're saying, and it's so interesting that they do this with things such as like mobs don't drop sanguine. I think the one that catches people off guard is like the Temple of Jade Serpent. Shaw is actually raging. I feel that is so surprising because Blizzard is normally pretty good about not having those things happen, and then it's just like thundering and quaking and stuff like that. They're in a weird spot where they don't always make the right decision.
I feel like that's why they're taking away quaking, because it requires too much specific dungeon changes that make it like good. And if you get like a really uncomfortable timing that is unpredictable kind of, and then like, I don't know how to explain, but like, yeah, quaking can be either a non-affix or it can be like, well, there's nothing we can have done. Yeah. And that's like really bad, I think, from a design point of view. I'm really glad that Thundering is going away because of the swirlies. I hated that. Quaking, I share a similar sentiment. Volcanic, they should keep, but I think the reason why they don't is because it's not a time loss. Like if you play Volcanic, and like all other affixes require some sort of, play around, but Volcanic is like too easy. It doesn't fit in there. Yeah. If they're already going away with the seasonal affix, then they have like 2. And they have to be impactful for it to feel like something, I think.
Even if we like look at the new level 7/level 14 row, I mean, is the push week now storming? Like, what is it storming plus X?
Entangling,
I think
maybe?
Entangling's pretty good for it.
Yeah, I feel like Entangling is just Volcanic, except you have to move farther away from it, and it slows you a little bit, but like that's kind of what it does, and like it affects you in melee too. I feel like it's not time loss though.
Maybe explosive will be nice as well. Like maybe if it's not too bad, and some classes that deal with them well, like they just cleave, are meta, then it's gonna be fine. Like super fine.
Like Outlaw Rogue is meta or something like that.
Yeah, or DH or Warrior maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. Do any classes get on death benefits like Havoc used to from explosives, or Warlock from explosives?
So Feral will with the HP change, they'll get Tiger Fury resets. Because now the explosives are able to like take your bleed, so you can get a Tiger Fury reset off of it.
Interesting.
Oh yes,
maybe something like that.
Mistine Sting on Feral actually.
Yeah, I heard that Boomy is actually quite good next patch as opposed to Feral. I'm sure makes you happy.
I've love that.
I've heard a lot of propaganda that they're unplayable and need big buffs. I don't know.
I haven't said
that's
shit.
Propaganda.
I haven't said shit actually.
Tuttles is over being the face of mid-good propaganda.
It's got fucking nothing to do with me, man. If they're bad, they're bad. It's got nothing to do with me. I'll just reroll something else. At this point, I'm tired of this shit.
We finally bullied him off the chicken, man. That's so good. All right. Let's see. We've got a couple of Q&A questions to get to, but first, we've got some supporters to thank over on the Patreon. They are Paul. No one is ever signing up for a 14 key now. Yeah, I guess this is the affix change.
Yeah,
which we didn't talk about, but the going up to the level 14 thing.
I don't even know how I feel about this. Like,
I think that's sweet. I don't know. It's hard to say though, right? Because like we are not the people who are doing keys between 7 and 14, which are the affected ones by this. But to me, it seems nice.
I have no. Yeah, I actually have no comment because I don't do keys in this level very often.
Yeah. I didn't realize how many guilds are looking for enhancement shamans. Yeah, dude, good enhancement shamans hard to find, and you need a lot of them.
Yeah,
it's a high demand DPS. Never Nude, Ja, King of Skills, Stratus' Dino Pillow, Chromed, Trekkie, Chewy, Trell is the Way, Salty Senny, ZivXX, Necris, Sinmora, Tankdill, Nevuk, Eevee, Unholy DK's Rise Up, No Trick, I Forgot I Was Subbed Here, Diemat, Freehold Waiting Room, Rework Mistweaver, taking May 9th off work for some new M+ action. Who's with me? I guess us probably as well, kind of.
Well, it depends on what you find as take off work.
Yeah. Nix, anyone survive PTR M+ this weekend? I guess that was last weekend.
Yeah.
Being asked about, but yeah, we'll come back next week or next podcast with reports of PTR M+. Gallic, Brusive, Dratnoshots Abyss. In Halls of Valor, what are the names of Herja's 2 hype men? Like and subscribe if Dratnos gets it right. That is Solston, and Olmir the Enlightened. Easy.
Like and subscribe.
Like and
I like how you know
subscribe.
his title.
Yeah,
The Enlightened. I did not know that.
I did not know that
yeah.
part, actually.
easy. Okay, where are we? Insanity, Xena. Rogue is now good enough for Prague. Still bad enough to be sat for SLG. Bless up. New SLG just dropped on. It just dropped in raid testing, by the way. Assault of the Zakali. New SLG.
Oh my god. That, yes, real lore, actually.
Red color, youtube.com/workbringer, Alphabet Soup, Druid Friends of Evolved Gaming, #1 Simsky for Trelsky, Lurka's back in the States, but was he ever really gone from our hearts? Milk, Sife, Pone, Windwalker Monksteel with Nerfs by rolling with the punches, Thesaurus.com is a powerful tool, the Marsh Hare, Veil Strider's Far, in before Blizzard brings back Stonecore for 10.2 so they can keep their streak of dungeons with a worm boss alive.
No, man.
Big Head Small Brain, Narnar TV says hi to Uncle Carmine, Agitar, Juniper, Vvoker is now V Phoenix again because pink class equals damage. Yeah, a lot of evokers I know are kind of moving off of the on the preservation side, at least. I don't know about on the damage side. It looked like Devastation got a pretty good set of changes this week, but maybe preservation is dead. I don't know. Easter is coming, but forget about G's. The real OGs for coming back are Glorfindel, Gandalf, and my GF bow friend on her BM Hunter. What is this name?
I don't know what that name meant, actually. I just copied and pasted it.
Pugging an Azure Vault +8 on alts is like, wake me up inside. I can't wake up. Wake me up inside. Save me from the sapling I've become. I see what you've done there.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Chauncey, that moment when your tank asks, now where's my ranged at? During Jade Serpent Boss and Victor Key. Feral Druid and MDI, you've got to be kidding me. Oh, you don't have that yet? Boom. Sire Dematicus, and the small mammal living in Dratnos' shirt.
What
Don't know.
do they mean by that?
I guess this is a chest hair joke. I get it.
I wasn't gonna say it.
I see.
What do they mean by that?
Good one.
Good one. Got me good.
God.
All right. Our first question comes from Theun that says, so it links this JB tweet, which
I'm pulling it up right now. Yeah.
Oh no.
doing the rounds. I've seen a screenshot as well of JB reporting a 4 DPS group in the group finder for discrimination as well. So
He's so mad.
premium content, but he's been on a little bit of a crusade about the 4 DPS 0 healer meta. And Theun is asking us what our thoughts are on this, plus the no heal runs in MDI. Is that good for the game? Is it a cool niche, or should they adjust it? Mode, as a healer who played in the MDI, I guess you banned Court of Stars, but what do you think about the 4 DPS thing in MDI, but also in live keys? The fact people are doing like 28s with this, is this something that is like a urgent, should be fixed, like JB's saying?
I mean, in MDI, I don't like having the extra pressure on me of like learning DPS as opposed to all healers. So I don't like that, but I guess it adds something to the viewer experience if there's like that one map where you can maybe play it and then they pull it out and it looks good. I mean, that's cool, I guess. But yeah, personally, I wish I didn't have to learn DPS. As for live keys, if they start taking over and you actually don't need a healer anymore, then that's a bad situation. Everyone can agree. I don't think it does too much harm with the no healer thing. I do feel like off healing is very high, but at the same time, when I'm healing, I kind of like that because I can just pump. I can just do my thing. So I don't mind that part. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not very strongly opinionated about it. I haven't felt excluded yet.
Yeah. How do you feel about the state of the role? Like, obviously, healer and M+, you're doing a lot of stuff that's not actively healing a lot of the times, whereas you're like, killing explosives, you're running around doing mechanics, coordinating CC, that kind of thing. How do you feel about just like the general state of the role in dungeons?
I mean, I don't think it's changed much.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I always enjoy doing as much things as I can and lifting a heavy load if I can. Yeah, not sure how to answer that question. Healing is what it's always been, I feel like, but you get more help now with the off healing things.
Yeah, my take on 4 DPS is like where it shows if it shows up once every few MDIs in like one map and like not all teams are doing it type thing. I think that's kind of cool, but I do think the fact that it's so successful on the live keys, right? Like at 28s and stuff is now to be fair, it's not like endemic there. It's like Nerf has been doing it, Zmok's been doing it, right? A couple people have been doing no healer runs. But like of the top 500 runs, there's like 2 or 3 no healer runs in there. So
I looked at it in the top 1,000 runs. There are 3 runs that involve a no healer.
At least DPS will learn to press their defensives like this.
Yeah.
So that's a good advantage.
Yeah,
that's a good point. Honestly, that really makes them realize exactly how much healing is needed.
Yeah,
I do think it like Prop Pally probably does need some ability, some HPS nerfs or defensive nerfs so that they can't put out as many wogs on other people while they're
I feel like
doing a dungeon.
I feel like Prop Paladin is such an anomaly that, you have so much utility for your group that no other tank has. And if that spec is viable, like if it's tanky and it does good damage, it's always the best tank because you can just carry so much with like off healing and Bop and Sack, and now you have Red Aura as well. Like that tank is just a problem, I feel like, in terms of balancing, because what could be as good,
I feel like Blood Decay is kind of similar in some situations.
Blood Decay has a somewhat similar pattern, right? Where it's like if this does enough damage and it doesn't require any healing, right? Like that's always the best, especially in raid and stuff. But yeah, it's nowhere near as good as like if Prop Pally is super tanky and doing a lot of damage and has off healing. And
I've never seen that.
There is nothing that can compare to like the support that a paladin can bring you on like a boss, where the group is getting a lot of damage on them and the tank is just chilling on that particular boss. They can do so much, like off healing and Sack and Bop. Like it's incomparable to like any other tank. So as long as they do damage and they're tanky, you can't compete with them. I feel like they will always be meta if they're like this. So I don't know what they should do. Like maybe they should nerf the damage, which will make a lot of people mad, or maybe they should nerf its survivability so that it can't off heal that much, which also makes people mad. I'm not sure.
I think Prop Pally's biggest thing is right now they have like all the Infinity Stones in the Gauntlet. They have every single thing at top tier that could be good is really good right now. And I think actually their off healing is based on like 1 or 2 talents that you don't normally take, but you can take in these 4 DPS comps, and those talents are actually just busted. I think maybe if they fix those, it's a little bit more reasonable. But I do agree, like when Prop Pally is tuned to be tanky and do a lot of damage, then they're by far the best.
You guys see this?
Yeah.
This is a crazy flip, because in 10.0, honestly, I felt like tank meta was a decent bit better, and then it's just like 10.0.7 hit and Prop Paladin got buffed, and it's just like, holy shit, this spec is ridiculous.
I'm an off meta prop warrior these days. I'm making it work with my bad spec, just out here.
Well, that's the craziest part is Prop Warrior is really good, but Prop Paladin is so good that it makes Warrior look bad.
Yeah. Dude, I've been feeling that like doing keys, because I'm like pushed for title on Warrior, but then like, we're right now I'm 3279, which is probably good for title, but like if we have to do a couple more keys, man, I kind of wish I wish I'd been a Paladin starting a few weeks ago and then just like gotten it on that, because I feel like I could do like 2 levels higher on that very easily.
I mean, I think that I've played with a decent amount of tanks, and the one I think the dungeon that I noticed the most between Warrior and Paladin is actually Shadowmoon Burial Grounds. Like the first boss of Shadowmoon, the difference between having a Paladin versus having a Warrior is like,
Turn Evil,
fucking night and day different. Yeah, like Turn Evil is ridiculous.
Dude, have you ever died from 80% health to 1 stack of the boss auto debuff thing as well?
I've seen that. Yes,
it's you have enough defensives on Warrior to be able to roll all the way through, but I got greedy on the very last auto of the fight and just down -5 seconds. Okay. Next question comes from Tator that says, with very rare items on bosses that drop tier, should they be considered an extra drop that has a chance? Currently, you have Broodkeeper where only 1 of the 2 drops can be the ring, and it causes the very rare item to effectively be it's double as rare, right? As the like Council and Aranog very rares. So maybe Tator says maybe there's a chance it rolls the rare item in addition to the normal tier plus 2 items. So that way it's not as rare, especially given that next tier, not only is there very rare, it then has a 1 out of 3 chance to be for your class, right? Because it's the icons, especially on that boss.
So,
they're class based.
So Scarizard in his blue post stated that tier progressively over the course of the whole entire tier was going to be reduced in the amount and the quantity that we were going to have. Now, how steep is this curve going to be? I think that's still like up in the air. There's still no specifics on that, but I think hopefully that's going to allow very rare items at least slightly higher drop rates. Now we don't even exactly know how this works, the very rare items specifically. We don't know what like the drop formula looks like behind the scenes, so I think that one's kind of difficult to be able to even analyze.
Yeah, I do think that just having the boss like roll a chance of a very rare dropping, as like any boss that has a very rare just rolls, and there's a 5% or 10% or whatever the chance is supposed to be, 20% chance that a very rare drops, and then it like generates the loot with that roll already having been done, would probably be a good way to fix this as well if they didn't want an extra item to drop. I think the extra item dropping would be a good solution too. You're right though, it'll kind of automatically happen as they reduce tier drop rates later in the tier, but still early on it's going to mean that those bosses are going to be a pain.
Yeah.
All right, next question comes from AckBanana on Twitter that says, weird question. With there being rumors of a third support evoker spec, what would you want it to play like?
Mode Dwagon.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I heard that they also data mined a quest line which like had in it like the text unlock third specialization. So it actually sounds likely, but they've never done something like that. Like they never dropped a spec in the middle of a patch. Like what?
Yeah.
What is this?
Dude, my tinfoil is that it's like 10.1.7 or something.
Oh,
yeah.
We're seeing the files like getting
That'd
in
be
there
cool,
now,
yeah.
but yeah.
You know, I think that World First Guilds, they should know something if it's for this raid release. You know, they should know something. I don't know. I have this hunch. Maybe they're keeping it secret if it is so, but
If it's
like,
going to be surprise, yeah. If like May 2nd comes out and you just can do a quest line and get another spec like that.
my god.
I mean, that would be kind of crazy.
yeah,
would be
like,
But
what?
I don't think that would be good.
Oh, it'd certainly
I
be
mean,
something.
what would I want it to play like? It's such a hard thing to say because, you know.
Disc Priest.
Tank.
Well, it would be cool if it had some shields. You know, I wouldn't complain. Well, I think it would be cool if they had a melee spec in Drakthir, or Evoker. But I
Like
don't
a
think that's
breaker
happening.
spec.
I mean,
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
what even is a support spec? Like a healer is a support spec. Is whenever I hear support, I think just
I
like
have no idea.
what the healer
sounds
role
like-
is.
Yeah.
It sounds like it would take like a DPS role, but like instead of doing its own damage, you'd be
Buffing
like
somebody
working
else?
off your allies' abilities or something. It's so weird
Something
though,
like
because
that.
I don't think WoW is like has a good
This is
skeleton for that to be balanceable.
This is they were like, okay, well, 40 DPS is pretty popular. Let's make a support spec so we don't have to bring a healer.
Well, actually, they're
just
trying to get
lean
us to
into
2 DPS. They're actually trying to remove one from dungeons and put a support in there.
I mean, I'm very curious. I'm definitely gonna play it. I'm actually excited. If it's something healy, then I'm down. You know, that sounds cool to me.
All right, well, that's all of our questions that we've gotten through. So thank you for coming on our show here, Moad. Any shout outs or anything? Anything you want to tell people about before we end here?
Yeah, thank you for having me. I mean, thanks to Mandatory organization that has us, and yeah, my friends. Shout out to everyone. I don't know. Shout outs.
Yeah, that's good.
Shout outs.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, well, that's going to be it for us this week. We'll be back next week probably. If not, we'll post on Twitter as always. But yeah, later, everybody.
Goodbye.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you
Goodbye.
guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.